Hello and welcome back to the Honest Designer Diaries, and today I am talking to the amazing Morgan Hastie. She is a multi-award winning designer and illustrator based right here in Scotland, from Glasgow. I first met Morgan about 18 months ago and she instantly made such a huge impression on me. While working towards her graphic design degree, she has built an already successful freelance design studio and has been independently commissioned by international brands such as Adobe, Uniqlo, Aardman Animations, First Bus and GF Smith. And today we are talking about the pros and cons of building your own social media platform while you're also building your business and while you're still in the very early stages of your design career. I hope you enjoy. Hi Morgan, thank you so much for coming on today. I've been really excited to talk to you about this. We always have such amazing chats whenever we get in each other's company. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I know we've talked about doing something like this for a while, and I feel like we chatted about your podcast so long ago and now it's real and now I'm here. It's so
I know
exciting.
I did procrastinate and I did do the whole should I, shouldn't I? And I worried about the whole tech behind it. And then I just thought, stuff it, I'm going to start doing this because I've already had so many amazing conversations with designers such as yourself. And it's through like meeting designers as yourself again and getting back more involved in the design community and then doing mentoring and things. I just thought, oh, there's so much I want to chat about. And the two of us combined have got 4 dogs between us. So there's going to be some dog barks and things during this podcast, but we'll just go with it. But why don't you just say who you are, a little bit what you do and what you've been up to lately, because it has been outstanding already.
So I'm Morgan, as you said. I'm a graphic designer and I'm born and bred and living just outside of Glasgow right now. It's quite a weird one because I'm sort of at the start of my career, but I've been freelancing for a little while. So I never quite know how to introduce myself. But I actually graduated 2 weeks ago now from university, which was really nice to finish up. And I've been freelancing through social media and other platforms now since 2023 as my sole income. So that has allowed me lots of opportunities to work with amazing clients and things. So yeah, I'm a bit of a weird mixed title going on there.
Yes, and I think that, and you and I have talked about this, you don't quite know how to position yourself. Are you a newbie designer because you're newly graduated, or are you actually a more experienced designer who's now 2-3 years into their career because you've been building up your business like since then and you've already done such amazing work with amazing clients. And I do want you to name drop, please. Can you name drop some of the brands that you have already worked with?
Yeah, I've had the privilege of course, working with Adobe. I'm an ambassador just like Juls, which has been amazing. That has afforded me so many opportunities client-wise. I have worked with Uniqlo twice, which was amazing to do. Actually 3 times, because then they hired me to work with Aardman Animations as well, which is always a fun name drop because it's so iconic. I've also worked with brands like GF Smith. I've been commissioned by them. I've been commissioned by First Bus. I was commissioned by Made Brave to help on a branding project and various other clients all around the UK and the US. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
But again, like considering, as you say, on the one hand, if you were to tell somebody, oh, I've just graduated from university 2 weeks ago and I'll start my design career. But on the other hand, you've just listed off some really big brands that you've already worked with, collaborated with and got paid and commissioned by. So you can't, I can see why you're feeling you're in that very weird headspace. And I think what I want to kind of talk about, and I know this has came up so often when I have been working with mentoring other designers who are still students and trying to kind of like and the questions all start the same. How do I get started? How do I get my name out there? How do I start getting work? Should I go into an agency straight away, or should I build up a freelance business? And it's all these shoulda, coulda, wouldas, what do we do? So maybe just start at the beginning, like what did you start to do at the very beginning and why did you start to post on social media?
Yeah, and it's quite a funny one because I think that all of those questions are so situationally dependent, like on where you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years. For me, I remember it clear as day. I was in university and every year we get this module where we have to talk about, you know, what junior designer roles are out there, what are they looking for when they're hiring, what's the salary, and we write a report on the current job market. And the uni is really good because they then use that to shape the course. So they'll teach modules that sort of tick off those boxes and criteria. And as we were going, I think it was around about second year when I started to notice, oh wow, there's way less jobs. There's way less junior designer roles. And at that point, I was already doing small commissions, mostly for small businesses and not really branding or, I guess, graphic design in the same way that I would do it now. It was very small ticket, like £20 for a logo. It wasn't my full-time job, basically. I was still working at Starbucks at the time. And in about second year, like I say, I was like, oh, this job market seems to be going down and down, and they seem to be looking for more and more. A lot of these applications for junior designer roles are wanting 2 years experience as well. How can you expect a junior to have 2 years experience? And I think as I started to sit with that idea, I realised that this vision I had in my head of walking straight into an agency and working my way up to creative director was maybe going to be a bit more difficult than I first expected. So from there, it was really just a case of, what can I do to be different? Like, in my mind at the time, internships are great, but anybody could do an internship as well. And I think if there's a way you can make yourself stand out publicly and make connections and work with clients and really just be putting yourself out there more to be known by these agencies and give yourself the best chance to get a job, why not commit to social media? It's free. You can get your work in front of thousands, potentially sometimes, if you're lucky, millions of people for nothing. And what have I really got to lose? I can grow my skills in uni simultaneously while implementing them into client projects outside of uni, and then slowly starting to increase my prices, increase my offering, niche down my offering slightly, and really just focusing on the type of clients I want to work with. And it worked. Like, now that I've graduated, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm proof of concept that you can do it. But at the time, it was a big risk. And I was putting a lot of time into it when I maybe could have been spending that time in uni. But I don't know. I got good grades, so I guess I didn't sacrifice too much apart from my time and maybe sometimes my sanity.
I think, and I think that's the thing. It's there's so much sacrifice time-wise you probably had to give up socializing at certain points, or family commitments, or weekend time, nighttime kind of thing. But at the same time, you've been able to realistically understand what it's like to juggle very real projects with other commitments going on in your life at the same time, which is the reality of what working life as a designer is like and will be your whole career. So you're kind of learning that very early on. You don't just have the one chunky project to work on at a time, and that's all you have to think about. You're often got 4 or 5 or more different projects all at different stages, all going on at the same time, and managing different clients. So it's really good to get that experience early on. And it's also really good to get used to the realities of what working with clients is really like. I think you can be quite protected when you're at university and you're on your course, because yes, you do the crits. I don't know if they're still called crits, when you'd had to put your wall up and everyone stands around with your lecturers and it all crit your work and how well you did with that project. And at the time, I remember thinking, oh, these are really quite brutal, and the lecturers are being really quite brutal with us. But they were adamant, well, this is what it's going to be like when you're in an agency, or this is what it's going to be like when you are putting your work in front of a client. They're not going to hold back on what they think of that. So to actually then get that experience firsthand yourself, putting your work out on social media is scary, because you're opening yourself up to everyone's opinion on the internet, basically, aren't you? The designers and the non-designers, who'll all, very quickly make their
They're
opinion
happy
known.
to say whatever, aren't they? Yeah, especially on TikTok. They just don't care. Which is quite funny, but no, you're so right. Like, I remember even doing an internship at an agency, and I would watch working on a live project, and of course they had me sort of doing concepts and things, and I was sitting beside one of the senior designers who would spend 2 days working on a concept, working on a word mark, building out the artwork to present it to the senior designer on the project, like the lead designer. And we'd get on a call at the end of the day and they'd look at it for 2 seconds, they go, it's not right.
Yeah.
And that was it. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
okay. And then there's that of like, 90% of your work, 90% of the work you do is probably never going to see the light of day.
Yeah.
And I think learning that really early on was very valuable, because I think it's helped me, even when it comes to uni. Like, I can take things on the chin a little bit more. I'm not really scared of criticism. I think it's nice fuel. It's a nice way to, okay, how do I take that and then make my work better? How can I make everything that I do just a little bit better is always really a good way to look at it. And I think that I learned that through working with my own clients, and then also, of course, like internships. And like you say, crits on the wall, at the time you feel like they're really harsh. Actually, I think the lecturers go a little bit too easy sometimes, where I'm like, you're not saying everything you want to say, but actually I think if they were just a bit more honest, it would be more beneficial.
I think
in a lot of cases.
They're trying to find that fine line of giving you enough criticism that you aren't going to feel absolutely so demoralised by it, you're not going to appear back the next day, but at the same time just enough that you realise, oh, this is like going to be what it's like in the real world. And I remember even when I was a designer in agencies, we would often have more than one designer would, if it was a big pitch especially and it was a big project, the founder would have all of us working on ideas and logos, and then you could maybe spend like the full week working on these concepts, and then you'd present them to him and he would just like narrow them down as to what are the best designs to then put 3 forward. In those days it was like 3 logo versions would then go forward to the client. And sometimes 1 or 2 of your logos would be in there, sometimes none if you totally missed the mark, and it'd be all the other designers' works going in. So as you say, sometimes your work didn't even get out the door to get seen in front of the clients because it had to get past that senior designer first. But I think that's really so important to learn, that you can miss the mark, or what you interpret it isn't quite there, because they're the person who's sat in the meetings and knows, well, they've passed it on to you what the client wants and stuff. But every designer interprets things differently. You'll see that even from a class project. Every single student has went off in totally different directions of what they've then created. So sometimes what's in your head from the same brief. So that's why I think he would get more than one designer to work on a big chunky projects to get that full range of design ideas. And you would have to learn very quickly to not take it personally if your work wasn't chosen. And then it just made you then strive to work harder the next time to make sure it was your designs that got put forward to the client. And then of course the client could look at them and go, nah. Actually it'd be simple as nah.
This is the thing, is like, if I hadn't done internships, I don't know that I would have learned that. Doing things the way that I've done them through social media and being my own lead designer, being the creative director, I suppose, of my freelance business. Yeah. There's nobody telling me. There's nobody like killing my ideas. It kind of falls to me. And I think that there's a real risk of falling into the trap of like, well, whatever I do is good enough. But actually, a really important lesson that I did learn, and that I think is valuable to anyone doing this, is that the first idea, or, you can always push further, I think, especially when you might miss the mark the first time. I mean, I do that all the time. It's like, okay, this isn't quite right. How do I then rework this and fix it? And it's much harder when you don't have a mentor-like figure who is 30 years deeper into the industry than you, telling you that from the offset. You're kind of figuring that out on your own and solving those problems, which is of course a really amazing skill to have, but it's learning that lesson to develop that skill, I think, is so important.
And I think it is difficult because not everyone has the opportunity to get internships. When you'll have seen it as well in your course, not everyone would have got the opportunity. There's just not that many local design agencies anymore,
especially now.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, even like, so I graduated in the mid 1990s, and even then there was still that worry. There was still that proportion. I'd say maybe 15 to 20% of graduates would work in a design industry in some form. Within 5 years, you'd be lucky if 5% left were still in the design industry. That was the stats even then, and it is even tougher now. And it's like two swords, isn't it? It's like when I graduated, there was no social media. There was no path other than you had to get your foot in the door to an agency somehow. And the Glasgow and Edinburgh scene at that time, luckily enough, there was a really vibrant industry of really cool design agencies. However, by the early 2000s, like mid 2000s, they were all gone mostly. Now there was like hardly any left. And it's like now, yes, you do have social media as an avenue and as a platform to grow and potentially go a different route, which is great. But I also think it leads to overwhelm and fear for a lot of younger creatives as well, that, well, oh my God, I'm actually quite shy. How do I put myself out there? Or how do I even start creating content? What sort of content? We found as well at your recent event for Doorways, and I was sitting talking to other designers, a lot of them were students just graduating that year, and some were saying to me, so I want to start my social media. When's the best time to start? And I was like, oh my goodness, you should have started 2-3 years ago when you were starting out as a student. But start now. Like, they're like, oh, but I want to finish my portfolio first on my website. My website's not perfect. And I'm sitting here thinking, right, I haven't updated my own portfolio online for a good 3 years. Still getting work, still posting on socials. My website is maybe gets visited less than a tenth of what my social profiles do now. And a designer's portfolio was never finished as far as I'm concerned. And I so wish I could kind of shake them sometimes and just say, just start posting something. Start posting your process.
It's the same thing. Like, I obviously being so surrounded by students, and when I started talking more openly about the fact that I was still a student, because I never used to really talk about it. And I got so many emails, and it's sort of why Doorways started. I got so many emails of people asking for advice, asking how the same thing, you know, when should I start? How do I know I'm ready? And you do just want to shake them and be like, you just need to do it. Also, in the beginning, how many followers have you really got? How many people are really seeing it? Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. No, I think it's better to grow visibly and develop your skills visibly, so that by the time you are good, you've built up a wee bit of an audience, you've maybe got yourself a couple of clients, you're growing as you grow, quote unquote. And I know that followers and likes and all that don't really matter, but if you can get more engagement, more traction, that can then get the right eyes on your work. And I think the earlier you start that, and the more you sort of engage with things like passion projects or sharing your uni work in a different way, not just showing your logo that you made and saying, oh, here's a logo I did, but actually breaking down the process and talking about the ideas and the way that you think, because that is ultimately why someone's going to hire you. They're not just going to look at a logo you've done and go, oh, that's great. Let me contact this person. They want to know what story you're telling and how you sort of perceive things.
And I absolutely agree, because as someone who has been on that side of hiring designers into our team and looking at umpteen applications and portfolios, but what I found was there was often a huge difference between their application and the portfolio they were submitting to when they were actually in front of me sitting in a room. Because immediately what I was, and especially when I worked in-house as managing the design team, often my thought was, I already knew they were a good designer. That's why they were shortlisted and walked in the door to the interview. But it was quite clear once they were sitting in front of me, if they couldn't defend their work or talk about their work in a succinct and clear way, now, then I knew that they would struggle with the teams that they would have to communicate with and deal with on a day-to-day basis in the corporate role we were in.
Presenting to clients, all this stuff.
That teams would very quickly walk over that person, because I knew they wouldn't be strong enough to see the value in the work they were doing, or even just their personality would come across. I'd be like, oh, And now there's a big thing with designers. Designers can be some of the loveliest people in the world, or they can have egos enormous, like they can't get their head in the door. And that's just, unfortunately, we've all came across them. And sometimes I would come across them walking in the door and I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, because what I'm looking for is somebody who'll sit within my team of other designers, collaborate, communicate with each other, support each other, help each other, and not sit there and be precious about their work and what they're doing and that they want to be the main person now how to get the best work. So
it's so true.
And on social media, if you're already showcasing that and putting a bit of your personality out there, and I can see what you're like and how you come across, that helps me get you in to get interviewed for that role over somebody who has no social media presence at all.
But I do totally agree. Like, I've had even clients message me and say things like, we really like your energy. And I don't know what that means, but I guess it's really just how you come across online. And I also think you can only fake that so far. You can only take that to a certain point. And I say this to people a lot, where if they're asking me for advice about how they should start posting or how they should start showing up, and they go, oh, I don't want to, make reels and tutorials. And I go, so don't. Like, I think there's a real pressure when you see other people doing incredibly well and they're getting lots of traction and they go viral all the time. People maybe automatically assume that that is the correct way, when actually there is no correct way, and everybody is suited to different things. If you force yourself into a box, and I've done it, so I feel like I can speak to this because I did try to do this to myself, but if you force yourself into a box of making content that feels like it's not authentic or natural, people see right through it. Like, they just know that you're at it and they don't want to engage with that. Whereas when you can show yourself, or the way you think, the way you sort of move through the world, like, that's what people want to connect with, is like the human side of it, not just, I'm trying to get loads of followers, so let me just make this type of video because this person has millions of followers because they do that. And that's because that's their style, and they've developed that over time.
Yeah. And
so
I think that's one of the cons, I think, of building your own social media presence, because it's all too easy to get caught up in consuming more than you create. And I do always try to create my posts, get them out there before I then consume on social media, because everyone does it. And especially I think when you're in a creative role and you're looking at lots of other designers' work, it's very easy to get caught up in I should be doing it this way because it works for that person. But I have watched, there is so many amazing designers, and some of them have really big, huge extrovert personalities. I know that's not me. So if I tried to create that kind of content, it wouldn't work. If they do very fast paced, and I even see sometimes people will post stuff about building a brand in a day, and I think, well, I know for certain that's not how I work. My brands take weeks to come to fruition and completion. So if I showcase work like that and a client comes to me thinking I can build out their whole brand in a day, I couldn't do it. So again, you have to show work in a way that you actually create in your actual real life. And there is a way that suits everyone. I find I struggle sometimes with because I'm an older designer, of being seen as current and trendy and still aware of these things. But again, I've found that I do it in my own way, because if I try and do it like a 20-year-old designer, that's not authentic to how I am as a designer either. So I've had to find my own way to showcase my work and content and things. But it takes a lot
more experience than a 20-year-old designer. So I suppose it makes sense for that to show in the way you sort of conduct yourself and the way you speak with. I would say you come across as very friendly, but with authority. And I think that it's like, you know what you're talking about when you do your inexperienced designer versus the in-house one you did the other day, for example. And it's very short and snappy, but informative. Content like that, I think, works really well. But I can see exactly what you mean, where you're trying to do your own style and your own voice is coming through.
Yes, and it's funny that you mentioned, so those are my new skit videos. That's a new type of format I'm trying, because I'm trying to find a way that comes across as, I want to be helpful, share the knowledge I've got, learn from my mistakes. Please don't make mistakes I did that I regret and with my whole career, but not to do it in a patronising or condescending or told you so way. And I think I really enjoy watching skip content videos myself. So then I was kind of like, well, how can I do that in my own way that's relevant to the design industry? And I actually, weirdly, and as you know, I'm quite a quiet person in real life, but in my kitchen, in my house, I can make these funny videos. And that video that I posted, my husband came home in the middle of me filming it.
So
And I
funny.
get so mortified. I was like, please go away. Please go upstairs. Don't even be in the bottom of the house because I can't have you listening
I
to me
can't
trying
film
to do
either.
this.
No, I totally get it. I'm the same. I literally say to my partner, he sits, that's our living room, like through the window. And I literally am like, put your headphones on. I need to record a voiceover and I can't have you listening to me, even though he will literally listen to it when I post it. I
Yeah.
can't be, I need privacy. Like I get so embarrassed.
I do get mortified as well. And I think I have children as well. Children, they're fully fledged adults now. But when I started doing my first TikTok videos, my son was 13, and I always remember him walking into the kitchen as I was trying to do a video, and he's like, "Oh my God, Mum, what are you doing?" I says, "Filming a TikTok." He went, "Oh, you're so cringy, Mum."
Nothing will humble you like your teenage kids.
Yes, and he's like almost 18 now, and I did laugh, and I was like to him, "See your mum and all her cringy content, look at me now." But he was mortified because a couple of years later, he was in 6th year, he's coming home from school and he's like, "Oh my God, Mum, why do you show up on my friends' FYP pages?" They keep coming
That's
up
so
to him and he's
funny.
going, "Is that your mum?" And I'm going, and for me that's quite mortifying, so I just forget people in real life even see my content.
Yeah.
But I know without creating all that content I've done the last few years, I wouldn't have had the opportunities, the clients that I've worked with, the brands that I've worked with, the business that my whole business now is wouldn't exist if I didn't embrace the cringe and
Of
do it
course.
anyway.
And
yeah.
that's the thing is like I am the exact same as you where I like to sort of imagine that no one in my life is going to see these and you just pretend, don't you? But then I'll be at a family barbecue and I've got my partner's cousin's girlfriend asking me if that's me in the ad on her
Yes.
TikTok and stuff. And I'm like, why are you seeing that? You're not in the design
Yeah.
industry. Why are you getting these ads? And then you just sort of have to be like, oh, I guess they don't now at this point find it embarrassing, I think, because it's worked. But in the
Yes.
beginning, it's
Mhm.
embarrassing. But as soon as you're
Yes.
making money and you're making a good life for yourself and everybody knows you've got a business, that's when people are like, oh, I want to do that too. And it's like, you were laughing at me 6 months ago.
Yes.
It's quite funny.
Yes.
It's a nice leap though, because
it is a nice
you.
leap, and it does. It's went from like why are you doing these kind of videos now, and to like, oh my God, I saw your video and I seen like that, I seen how much engagement it had, I seen how many followers you have now, or all that kind of stuff. You're like, and again, and it is that whole followers don't mean, as we know, anything. Like, for example, my TikTok account has over 200,000 followers on it. My engagement is crap on there. And it's because it's only good if I post Canva animations, which I no longer do. So the fact that I have pivoted my account 18 months ago and posting entirely different stuff now, TikTok just doesn't like it and doesn't show it to anybody. But yet I've built my Instagram app, but that took like another 2.5 years after TikTok took off. So TikTok took off within 3 months and that was flying. Instagram, I sat at under 1,000 followers for 3 years with the same 10 people following and unfollowing that whole time. And it wasn't until like one reel took off and then traction gradually got there, which is the hard thing, I think, as well. If people are starting out, they're saying this is getting barely seen by 10 people and it's getting 200 views. But if I think back, if I'd stopped posting on Instagram and just given up, it took a good 3 years to get that account off the ground. But it's now, although it's got less followers, it's far more engagement rates and connections and DMs and things from designers and clients and things than the huge one on TikTok does. it's
And
bizarre.
people forget that that counts. Like I was speaking to a woman the other day who was talking about how she really struggles to commit to a consistent posting schedule. And I was like, you know that consistency is also just like being on stories and DMing people and showing up and liking other people's content. Like you don't need to be making 5 reels a week. That's not realistic for anyone, unless that is your job, in which case fine. But if you've got design clients too, like you're going to get burnt out really fast if you try to do that, especially in the beginning
Yeah.
when maybe the payoff is less and the views are lower and the engagement seems lower and you think, oh, why am I putting all this effort in? Nobody's seeing it. But I had a very similar experience to you with Instagram where I made that account in 2020 and I was doing like little illustration commissions and stuff. Started kind of pivoting it to more of graphic design and branding in 2022. And I think at that point I had like 2,000 followers. And then I was kind of consistently growing slowly. By 2024, I had about 4,000. And then over the past year, I went from like 15K to 45. And it's just like,
it's amazing.
it's literally just like that. Really slow growth and just showing up and finally like hitting a bit of a stride of what I want to put out. Whereas before it was a lot of trial and error and does this format work? Does this format work? Was a big thing.
Because what worked even 6 months ago doesn't work now. And again, it's that level of the amount of research you have to do to keep posting on socials as well. I think a lot of people just won't put the time and investment into, I think, harshly, I'll say it, because I know that what grew my account 2 years ago is no longer relevant to a lot of my audience now. And I'm having to switch up the content I'm creating. I'm getting bored with my own content, which is why I started doing the skit style videos. It's why I'm now doing the podcast. It's because I don't want to keep posting just tutorials all the time. I'm kind of cutting back from doing in my business workshops and tutorials and learning. So it doesn't make much sense to keep doing that content on my socials. So it is, and that it's a whole learning. And I think again, that's when we're talking about more pros and cons, is it's very easy to get caught up in maybe I should know more, maybe I should buy this course, maybe I should listen to this coach. And I know you wanted very much to talk about that as well.
Yeah, because I think that's a huge thing that I see a lot of people asking me for advice on. Like, I don't know if it's maybe because they assume I've done it. But I've been sent quite a few times some design courses and people would say to me, is this worth it? And I find it quite tricky to ever really say yes or no, because I think it depends on each individual person. And I'm not going to sit and say that every design course is a scam, because it's not. I could name like some off the top of my head right now that aren't. And there's some that I've promoted in the past that I've done that I truly believe in, like Laura Evans' packaging course that I think is an amazing course and I would recommend to people. However, there are quite a lot that I think encourage people or imply that they're going to help you be a better designer. And actually, they teach the basics of design that you probably already know. And most of it is a marketing course. And they're telling you to charge 10K for a project. But then you look at the work that person is producing, and they're still very beginner. And actually, I typed out a big LinkedIn post about this the other day because I ended up not posting it, but I probably should, because it's not as if it's...
I've not seen that.
I probably should. I'll post it now that we've talked about this. But I do think that even in the past month, for example, right, I've had 3 client inquiries, 3 separate clients come to me and say, I've been working with another designer. It's not working out. They can't produce the thing for print properly. They're not hitting the mark is another reason. They're not executing to the level that I expected. Like, these are reasons that are sort of coming up. And I'm like, okay. And then there's always the caveat of, oh, we really want to work with you. We've spent so much budget on this other designer. and we're getting
Yeah.
nothing out of it. We need to start from scratch. We only have X amount. And I'm like, at what point, I'm all for fake it till you make it, but at what point is it almost unethical to be encouraging people who are
Yep.
so beginner, who don't have the experience, to just say yes and quote 5-figure projects?
Yeah.
When they could be charging a little bit lower and learning. Like, I think there's two sides to it. It's like, you charge a bit lower, you get the job, you learn from it, so you can then charge more as you go. I don't think we should be teaching beginners and emerging designers to be quoting so highly.
I absolutely agree with everything you just said, and it's actually been quite a big pet peeve of my own, that I see both sides. One, that there's a lot of coaches out there, unfortunately, take advantage of newer people in the industry who are not aware. And it's almost like
10K
they cling
months
to
and all
somebody
this.
who's, yes, oh, the 10K, oh my God. I saw a peak of it, see, during COVID, when so many people were pivoting and everyone was switching on to online courses, and webinars getting flung out left, right and centre. And I actually had to kind of mute quite a lot of accounts and hide them, because I was so disgusted by seeing this. Because again, as I'm sitting here with so much experience, and my head, I kept going, this is not the reality. This is not what happens when you work with a client. And yes, there are some newer designers who could pick up things really quickly, get off and running, learn from it, and absolutely achieve that. But the vast majority are going to get overwhelmed, are going to end up really badly letting down a client, or not have the skills to see a project through and cost the client a lot of money, especially when there's things like print. Now, my background was design
Packaging,
for print. Yeah, it was my bread and butter. It's what I did for the first 12 years of my career. Print is complicated. Print is difficult. And so many designers now are learning digital first that they don't even understand the differences of CMYK and RGB and the errors that can fling up, which is quite alarming when something goes to print stage. And even to understand with print processes, depending on what paper stock you print on, how what finishes apply can affect the colours and all that kind of stuff. And I saw it as well with PDF has eliminated this whole groundwork of knowledge you have to have as a designer to understand how overprint works and all these kind of things, because they think the PDF will do it for them. And it's quite alarming how few designers, which is why I actually love that you have focused into packaging design, because packaging design is like a whole skill of designers on its own. Not even design for print, as in brochures and magazines, things like that, but packaging design, again, having to understand how to even create the die cut in the first place, what things are going to be upside down, and
as well.
working with engineers, understanding
printers.
the requirements and the barcodes and all that kind of stuff, and it has to go on. And I saw for a while packaging design was kind of lumped onto courses and is something to sell as an add-on to your client. And I'm thinking, not everyone needs something designed in a package for them, but it seemed to be the trend for a while, which really alarmed me. And I did see these courses myself, and at the beginning I kind of almost felt I did buy one or two, and it was quite reassuring in a way, because it kind of showed me, well, I'm actually doing all of that anyway, and I do have the experience of doing that. Because I've been in-house for 10 years, I kind of thought, oh, maybe things are different now. But I then quickly realised, oh, these courses are very overvalued for what's actually contained inside them.
I think that's the thing, is there's some that are so good. Like, I know one designer in particular right now who's offering a mentorship program where they will teach you exactly how they do charge 10 grand for a project in their studio, right? But they're guiding you and they're actually teaching you things. Whereas some courses I've seen, bought myself and seen firsthand or heard from very reliable sources, are not doing that. It's very much,
Uh-huh.
here's some videos, go watch them. And it's stuff that you probably already know. And they're charging an arm and a leg for it. It's the same people that will tell you they make 10 grand a month, but actually they're making it, selling you the course to make 10 grand a month. And it is
Yes.
very much taking advantage of emerging designers, people who actually a big one that I see is like targeting it at maybe new mums who want to have a business and things like that. So it's just like such a shame. And I think the packaging one is it's funny you flagged that, because I noticed as well there was a big trend, and I promoted Laura's course for a while, or still I would say I still do, but I was an affiliate because I learned so much from that course. And if anybody would ask me questions about packaging, I was like, I actually think you should take this course, because it was one of the ones I did that I was like, oh, this was actually worth the money. And you learn so much, and she was there to answer questions. And what I found now that I'm sort of moving on and I've maybe promoted that, I get DMs all the time from people who are like in the middle of a packaging project asking me questions about how they should set things up for print. And I'm like, why do you not know that? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a totally different skill set. And I think the issue is maybe that people want to take on the project. They say, yeah, they don't maybe realise how difficult things can be, and that you need to be in communication with the printer. You need to be talking to the manufacturers.
My goodness.
Everybody needs to be operating together. You can't just rely on the client to relay things, which is a big thing. So yeah, I think that was a big trend, and now loads of people have specialised in packaging design, which I love to see because I love packaging design. And when people are willing to take the time to learn it, it's amazing. But I don't know about a lot of the clients I'm getting now are telling me that their printer can't work with the files they've been given.
Yeah.
Which is not good when you're paying thousands of pounds.
No, and it used to be like a great sense of pride. I remember when, as a junior designer, my boss took me into printers to understand the print process. And I think, and I mentioned it to you before, the whole like connections and how small our world is where we live, that one of the places I went to was assigned writers, and it ends up being your partner's parents' business. And all the time I worked with them, like 30 years ago, 25 years ago. But he wanted me to understand, and again, signage, event design, all these things are specialisms in itself and are so difficult to learn. Like, I had to do quite a lot of designing event spaces at exhibitions and things, so I had a lot of hands-on experience with that. Packaging design a little bit, but I understood the print process. And that knowledge I am still using even now, all these years later, even though I don't get to send them to print that much, but knowing I have that knowledge tucked behind me. And I think, again, it's something a lot of designers now don't think of first. And I still design. I design for print first. Like, how would this look? How would the colours work? How does the layout work if it was ever to be printed? Which I think is a really good basis to know. And packaging design, I love. Yeah, it is. But it is such a skill. And I actually had a client recently who's also a friend, and she has designed this product and she was getting it made out in China and shipped, and she had to get the packaging done for it. So of course she's like, could you do packaging? Absolutely. And I laughed out loud, and she won't mind me telling this, but laughed out loud when she phoned me up. She's like, right, so we need to design the packaging, the box for it. So I'll just pop over to yours. And I've been trying to do it in Canva. And I was just like, Jesus, God almighty, no. And she's like, what? I'm like, you can't design. Yeah. No, I was like, you can't design this in Canva. And she's like, can I not? I was like, no. And she's like, can I come over? And usually I would say, absolutely not. But I actually said to her, yes, you can come over, because you're going to see how painful this is to design in real time as I'm doing it. And so straight away I'm like, right, okay, what instructions do you have from your manufacturer? Do you have the cut patterns? Do you have the die cuts and lines? And how do we have a file from them? So then she's on the phone going back and forth, and they're sending through all this stuff. And I opened it up in Illustrator, and she just looked at it and she was like, what the actual is that? Because that looks so complicated. I went, that's your box. like outline, and that's what I need to design on and position everything correctly and size it all up and make sure everything's in the right layer, and then make sure things that we want die cut is in the right layer. She's like, oh, I went, are you now understanding why we can't do something as complex as that in Canva? And she's going, yeah.
Yeah.
And she sat with me
It is
till
just one of those layers and
12
like
at night. Yeah.
I've even had in a lot of the stuff I do is like special finish, screen printing, or like gloss overlay and overprinting things. And knowing how to work with all that in pre-flight is so valuable. And even what you said about colour, like I do the same thing, where I recently did an Amazon project, which was so colourful and really, really bright. And I printed it. And I had people, I made a joke on my stories saying, oh, they printed this in RGB because it was so bright.
Mm-hmm.
But it was
Yep.
only so bright and it only worked so well because I designed it in the CMYK gamut and
Yep.
made it really bright there.
Yes.
So when it printed, it looked really good. People were DMing me like, wait, did you actually print this in RGB? I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know you could do that. And I was like, you can't do that.
You can't. No.
But you can work to, I think, the limitations of it. Whereas if you work digital first, you tend to be a bit disappointed by purples and dark
Yes.
blues and oranges. And
Oranges
you
are a
lose
nightmare.
the
Yeah.
punch.
Yeah.
So knowing these things is really good, I think. We've gone off on a big print tangent,
We
but
kind of have.
it's a fun one to talk about.
Yes, it is. It is. But it's such an important one. Like, and I find every conversation I kind of have, we do end up going off on a tangent in different directions. But I suppose if young designers are listening to us now, new designers who are either starting their course or halfway through their course or about to graduate, what advice would you give them to get themselves out there if they are struggling to find work and they would love to get some work and be in this industry? What would you suggest to do?
I would suggest, as a more umbrella term, that they start using social media. And to get more into the like minutiae of it, I don't think you should put pressure on yourself to quote unquote be a content creator. I think what needs to be at the centre of everything that you post is the work, the concept, the idea. If you can show that consistently, even just in the beginning, to put something out, build your confidence and treat it like a living portfolio almost, posting the things that will show the ideas that you have. And then maybe down the line, once you're feeling a bit more ready, you can start to get more into putting yourself out there and yourself into it a bit more. I think putting pressure on yourself in the beginning to start and just like be recording talking heads and walking through your work and making good edits of your work, that doesn't just come. That comes from a slow build, I think. So I would recommend that you don't put that pressure on yourself and you just start with what you have. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to spend loads of time on passion projects in the beginning. Just I would say, aim for about 5 pieces of content for every project you've got. Come at it from different angles, because I think, at least for this is a wee bit of a long piece of advice, but
that's okay.
For myself, like I used to do a project or a passion project and I wouldn't put a lot of time into it. I'd just do it for the sake of content and then I'd post it once and that would be it. And that's not good for anybody, right? But if you spend a wee bit longer on a passion project, or if you've got a really good uni project that you think is like, this, I'm really proud of this, break it down. So do a carousel showing it off. Do a case study where you break down the logo. Why did you design it that way? And explain some of the rationale and some of the thinking. Then maybe do a reel showing it off. Like, think of different ways. Aim for 5, maybe a story, and then maybe a LinkedIn post, like you're diversifying the media you're on. But just using it and juicing the content that you have is a really good way to just not get burnt out and overwhelmed, because you can work with stuff that you've got sitting on your hard drive already. I think is good to maybe get started.
Yeah, and it's not, and I think the biggest thing I've learned is it's not once posted and done. You can repost and repost that same thing many times, even if it's like you've posted it but 3 months later, post it again, but as you say, in a slightly different way, different angle, because it's a whole group of different people who are actually going to see that post.
They say
and
it's got a
just,
shelf life of about 4 days on an Instagram post,
yes,
and then
exactly.
after that, nobody's going to see it unless they're stalking you or they're having a wee nosy.
Yeah.
Post it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Post it again. So repurpose, repeat. Is there another R to round that off? Repurpose, repeat.
Rationale.
There you go. That's our 3 hours of advice to round up this episode. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting, Morgan. And it's been lovely having you on. And I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm sure I'll see you at a networking event in Glasgow or something else that's really fun soon.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything we've talked about in this episode has hit a nerve a little bit, or you've had a similar experience, I would genuinely really love to hear from you. You can send me a message, leave me a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or share your own story with me. Because honestly, the more we talk about this stuff, the more we realise so many of us are dealing with the exact same things, the same experiences, the same situations, and can really help each other by talking more openly about it. And if you want a space to chat with other creatives who get it, I've got a community called The Creative Room. It's a really supportive space. We talk about the struggles, the rants, the clients, creating content, marketing yourself, all the other stuff that comes with running a creative business or working in this industry. I'll leave the link in the show notes if you fancy joining us, and I'll catch you in the next one.